The Panama Canal will limit daily ship passages from September because of drought, raising costs on routes that carry roughly 5% of global trade. This is Omni View, episode 150. The Panama Canal Authority will reduce the number of ships allowed through each day starting in September. Low rainfall linked to an intensifying El Nino event has lowered water levels in the canal's reservoirs. The authority has not yet stated the exact new daily limit. The canal handles vessels carrying grain, energy products, and consumer goods between Asia, the Americas, and Europe. Shipping companies have already begun rerouting some larger vessels around South America, adding weeks to voyages and higher fuel costs. Deutsche Welle frames the change as a direct response to measurable rainfall shortfalls. Regional logistics firms note that previous drought restrictions in 2023 to 2024 already demonstrated how quickly global freight rates can rise when the canal's capacity shrinks. The waterway functions as a critical link for bulk commodities and manufactured goods. Operators now face decisions about whether to accept longer voyages or pay premiums for available slots. Observers point out that the current restrictions build on patterns seen in earlier dry periods, where reduced transits directly affected delivery schedules for agricultural exports from the Americas and industrial imports heading to Asian ports. The authority is expected to announce the precise daily transit cap in the coming weeks. Shifting now to a major deployment change. The United States has shifted its only aircraft carrier previously stationed in the Asia-Pacific region to support operations in the Middle East. No replacement carrier has been assigned to the Western Pacific in the immediate term. Nikkei Asia reports the move leaves the region without a forward deployed carrier for the first time in years. U.S. defense officials have described the redeployment as temporary and driven by immediate operational needs elsewhere. Regional governments in Japan and South Korea have previously relied on the visible presence of a carrier for deterrence signaling. The absence raises questions about how quickly another vessel could return if tensions rise on the Korean Peninsula or in the Taiwan Strait. The shift occurs amid ongoing U.S. commitments in multiple theaters, with the carrier group now positioned to address requirements in waters near the Arabian Peninsula and surrounding areas. Analysts tracking naval deployments note that the absence of a carrier in the Western Pacific alters the visible force posture that allies have grown accustomed to seeing on a regular basis. This adjustment reflects the U.S. Navy's practice of reallocating major assets when priorities shift between regions, though it leaves a gap in routine presence that other surface ships cannot fully replicate. The Pentagon has not announced a timeline for returning a carrier to the Western Pacific. Next, a development in Pakistan's legal proceedings. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan has returned to Adiala jail after medical checks at Shifa International Hospital in Islamabad. The Supreme Court had ordered the hospital visit. The Hindu reports the move follows a court-ordered medical evaluation. Pakistani government statements emphasize that the transfer back to prison was routine once checks were complete. Khan's legal team has previously argued that prolonged detention affects his health. The latest development leaves open whether further court hearings will address ongoing medical access requests. The sequence began with the Supreme Court directing hospital treatment, after which authorities completed the evaluation and returned the former prime minister to his cell. Government sources describe the process as standard procedure for any detainee requiring medical attention. Opposition figures continue to question the conditions under which Khan is held. The case remains tied to multiple legal proceedings that have kept Khan in custody since his removal from office. Khan's legal team is expected to seek additional court directions on his detention conditions. In Kenya, a survey shows that nearly 3 in 5 respondents oppose government-approved increases in ride-hailing fares. Affordability concerns rank as the main reason for opposition. All Africa reports that passengers view the proposed hikes as likely to reduce access for lower-income users. Ride-hailing companies and some drivers argue that current fares do not cover rising fuel and maintenance costs. The division highlights a tension between protecting platform workers' earnings and keeping urban transport affordable for daily commuters. The survey captured opinions across major cities where ride-hailing services operate. Respondents cited household budgets as the primary factor in their stance. Government regulators have indicated they are reviewing the fare structure to balance operator viability with consumer protection. Drivers affiliated with the platforms have staged demonstrations in recent months to press for higher rates. Passenger groups have organized petitions against the increases. The Kenyan government has not yet set a final implementation date for the new fare structure. Turning to financial markets, China has launched futures contracts on offshore government bonds traded in Hong Kong. The contracts are designed to give investors a way to hedge interest rate risk while holding yuan-denominated debt. Nikkei Asia notes the move is part of longer-term efforts to increase the yuan's role in international finance. Market participants say the contracts could attract more foreign institutions that previously avoided yuan bonds because of limited hedging tools. The launch occurs against a backdrop of gradual liberalization of China's onshore bond market. The futures allow traders to manage exposure to changes in bond yields without needing to sell the underlying securities, a feature that appeals to portfolio managers seeking stability. Hong Kong's role as the trading venue provides a familiar regulatory environment for international participants who already operate in the city's financial markets. Officials have framed the product as one step in a broader strategy to make yuan assets more usable for cross-border transactions and reserve management. Trading volumes in the first weeks will indicate whether the contracts gain traction with overseas investors. In manufacturing news, Daikin has improved output rates for air conditioner control boards at its Indian factories. The company achieved the gains through changes in assembly processes and equipment layout. Nikkei Asia reports that the efficiency improvements allow Daikin to meet rising Indian demand without immediate new plant construction. Local suppliers note that the upgrades also create opportunities for component makers in the region. The changes reflect broader efforts by Japanese manufacturers to raise productivity in existing overseas facilities. The control boards are essential components in residential and commercial air conditioning units. Higher throughput at current sites helps address seasonal peaks in orders. Indian suppliers of electronic parts and wiring have seen increased orders as a result of the streamlined production lines. The adjustments involved reorganizing workstations and introducing incremental automation steps that reduced idle time between assembly stages. Daikin plans to apply similar process adjustments at other Indian sites in the coming year. Now, some progress worth knowing about. Digital payments now account for 64.7% of all transactions in the Philippines. The figure reflects continued growth in mobile wallets and bank transfers. Nikkei Asia reports that the central bank has supported the shift through regulatory changes that lowered barriers for new payment providers. Banks and fintech firms have expanded services to previously unbanked populations. The main remaining challenge is extending reliable internet and smartphone access to rural areas where cash still dominates. The central bank's policy adjustments included simplified licensing for non-bank payment operators and clearer rules for interoperable systems between different wallet providers. Urban centers have seen the fastest adoption, with ride-hailing, food delivery, and retail checkout apps driving much of the volume. Rural provinces continue to rely more heavily on cash because of patchy mobile coverage and lower smartphone penetration rates. To really understand the Panama Canal restrictions, consider how the waterway actually manages its water supply. Most coverage treats the canal as a simple shortcut whose capacity is fixed, yet the system depends on a delicate balance between rainfall, lake levels, and daily lock operations. The canal draws its fresh water from Gatun Lake, which is refilled only by rain in its watershed. Each ship transit uses roughly 200 million liters that flow out to sea. When El Nino reduces rainfall, the authority can either lower the number of daily transits or restrict the draft of ships so they displace less water per passage. Knowing this mechanism shows why a single dry season can affect freight costs worldwide rather than just local tourism. The last comparable restrictions in 2023 to 2024 produced measurable spikes in container shipping rates between Asia and the U.S. East Coast within weeks. When you next read that the canal is limiting traffic, check whether the authority has published the exact daily transit number and the projected lake level for the coming month. Those two figures reveal how long the constraint is expected to last. The authority publishes weekly reservoir data that operators and analysts monitor closely to anticipate further adjustments. Historical records show that the canal has faced similar water management challenges roughly every 5 to 7 years during strong El Nino cycles, giving planners a reference point for how long restrictions typically remain in place. Shipping lines use these forecasts to decide whether to book canal slots months ahead or shift cargo to alternative routes around South America. If you want to go deeper on the Panama Canal restrictions, compare how Deutsche Welle and Nikkei Asia are covering it. You will see two different frames on the same facts. Before we go, watch for whether the Kenyan government sets a final date for the new ride-hailing fare structure. That's Omni view. As always, compare outlets, look for primary documents, and separate what's known from what's assumed. The world is complicated, but it's not beyond understanding, and you just spent a few minutes understanding it better. If that's worth something to you, subscribe wherever you listen. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nera Network. Links in the show notes. Quick tip from the network. Try Planetarian Daily next. Daily breakthroughs in science, health, and longevity. Every Nera Network show is free at neranetwork.com. Want the written briefing with source links? Each show keeps a summaries page on neranetwork.com. Scannable, dated, and free. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.